It was the story of a family living in the quiet countryside of America. The family consisted of four members: a hard-working father, a caring mother, and their two daughters. The elder daughter was 16 years old, while the younger one was just 12. The father was a successful farmer. After years of hard work, he finally earned enough money to buy a large piece of land to expand his farming business. The property was located far from the nearest village, surrounded by endless fields and dense woods. Standing in the middle of the land was an old two-story farmhouse with a dark, abandoned basement. On a bright summer morning, the family moved into their new home. The parents took the bedroom on the first floor, while the two sisters shared the rooms upstairs. At first, everything seemed perfect. The father spent his days preparing the fields and setting up farming equipment. The mother kept herself busy with household chores, and the two girls started attending school in the nearby village. For the first few weeks, life was peaceful. Then something strange happened. One afternoon, while working in the fields, the father noticed three black crows perched on a tree directly in front of the house. They weren't looking at the fields or at the sky. They were staring at the basement window. The birds remained perfectly still, letting out long, mournful cries that sounded almost like human sobs. The father watched them for a moment before shaking his head. "They're just crows," he thought, and continued working. But the uneasy feeling never left him. A few nights later, he woke up thirsty and walked toward the kitchen for a glass of water. As he reached the hallway, he froze. From somewhere below the house came the sound of laughter. It was his younger daughter's voice, soft, gentle, as if she were happily talking to someone. The father slowly followed the sound until he reached the basement stairs. There in the darkness stood his 12-year-old daughter. She was smiling, laughing, whispering to someone who wasn't there. The basement was completely empty. "Daisy," he called softly. No response. He called her name again. Nothing. His heart began to race. Gathering his courage, he stepped closer. Then he realized something terrifying. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't awake. She was sleepwalking. He carefully carried her back to bed. The next morning, she remembered nothing. The father convinced himself it was just an ordinary case of sleepwalking. But that was only the beginning. Days turned into weeks. The younger daughter was often found standing silently near the basement door. The elder sister began hearing footsteps above her room late at night, even when everyone was asleep. The mother claimed she heard someone whispering her name whenever she walked past the basement. The father himself started waking up to strange knocking sounds coming from beneath the floor. Every member of the family experienced something different. Yet every strange event led back to the basement. The house no longer felt like their home. It felt as though someone else was living there. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, the family packed their belongings and left the farmhouse. But the father refused to let the mystery remain unsolved. He began searching through old newspaper records and speaking with elderly villagers. What he discovered chilled him to the core. Exactly 20 years earlier, another family had lived in that same house. A farmer, his wife, two daughters, even their ages matched those of his own children. One day, the family disappeared without a trace. Days later, neighbors noticed a terrible smell coming from the house. When they forced the door open, they found all four family members dead. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of murder, no explanation. The case remained a mystery. Haunted by what he had learned, the father sought the help of an old priest known for dealing with supernatural cases. After listening carefully, the priest closed his eyes and remained silent for several moments. Finally, he spoke. "The family never left this house. Their souls are still trapped in the basement. They are not evil. They simply believe this is still their home. They don't want anyone else living here." The priest agreed to perform a cleansing ritual. On the night of the ritual, strange noises echoed throughout the house. The basement door slammed shut on its own. An icy wind rushed through the rooms. The lights flickered violently. Then, everything went silent. The priest slowly opened the basement door. The suffocating heaviness that had filled the house was gone. "It is over," he said quietly. "The souls have finally found peace." A few days later, the family returned to the farmhouse. The crows never came back. The whispers disappeared. The footsteps stopped. And from that day forward, the house was silent once again.